Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Could Americans be more hawkish on Israel than Jews are? What do professional matchmakers think of the chances for singles in the community? Hear this man's incredible story of bringing 5 impoverished kids off the streets, the best way to make a kosher sandwich, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world in this webcast version of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. Could Americans overall be more hawkish on Israel than American Jews are? A new survey suggests that could be the case. Much has been made of the American Jewish community's feelings about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in recent weeks, particularly after last week's conference of left-wing Israel lobbying group J Street. A major signifier of dovish sentiment for American Jews has been a push to get the Obama administration involved heavily in the peace process, something for which J Street, for example, has been a fierce advocate. And in J Street's polling, fully 88% of American Jews support the United States playing an active role in resolving the Arab-Israeli conflict. And 72% of American Jews said they support the U.S. exerting pressure on both sides. But there seems to be disagreement between Americans generally and American Jews on the issue of U.S. involvement in the peace process. Among the general American population, more Americans want the U.S. to have less involvement in the peace process, according to the latest annual survey from the Anti-Defamation League of American Attitudes Towards Israel. In that survey, by a 48 to 39% margin, Americans said that any lasting peace agreement must be reached with minimal involvement from the U.S. However, it's interesting to note that margin is closing. Where fully 48% of Americans want the U.S. playing a minimal role, 10% more Americans wanted the U.S. playing a minimal role during the Bush administration. This could suggest American attitudes are changing since President Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu came into office. And there are other signs of some change in American attitudes toward the peace process. Asked if they think Israel is serious about wanting to reach a peace agreement with the Palestinians, 10% more thought Israel was serious in 2005 than have in surveys since then. But American hawkishness on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process is fairly evident in a variety of the specifics. Asked to compare two statements, only around a quarter of Americans think the peace process will be strengthened by the creation of a Palestinian state as soon as possible. A majority of Americans think a Palestinian state must not be established until Palestinians demonstrate a commitment to end violence and accept Israel's legitimacy. And in seemingly very strong contrast to a policy the Obama administration has touted, 3 out of 4 Americans don't seem to think that a total freeze on settlement construction by Israel will lead Arabs and Palestinians to negotiate a final peace deal. Interestingly, this is another example of the possibility that Jews are more dovish than Americans generally, since 41% of American Jews polled in October said they agree with the Obama administration's call for a stop to all new Israeli settlement construction. And Americans also support an attack on Iran to keep it from developing nuclear weapons at a rate similar to that for Jews. 54% of Americans think the United States should take military action to keep Iran from developing nuclear weapons, according to the ADL survey. That number for American Jews is almost identical at 56%, according to the American Jewish Committee. Interestingly, this is the first time that a majority of Americans have supported military action against Iran in the ADL's poll. Meantime, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's recent Mideast tour was an opportunity to gain additional clarity on the Obama administration's positions. Clinton said that a freeze on settlement activity isn't a prerequisite for peace negotiations, and actually suggested that negotiations could instead be a prerequisite for freezing settlement activity. As she told Palestinian leaders, quote, "Getting into final status negotiations will allow us to bring an end to settlement activity." Clinton had previously praised the Netanyahu administration for what it has done to slow settlement growth, referring to its concessions as, quote, "unprecedented." Clinton nonetheless made clear the administration's intent to push forward on ending settlement activity, saying in Cairo Wednesday, "We do not accept the legitimacy of settlement activity, and we have a very firm belief that ending all settlement activity, current and future, would be preferable." Well, if it seems hard to get Israelis and Palestinians talking to each other in a small geographical location, how hard is it for matchmakers to get a conversation going among prospective daters here in the American Jewish community? Rebecca Honig-Friedman stopped by a matchmakers convention to find out.
For many in the Jewish community, the term matchmaker may evoke images of Yenta from Fiddler on the Roof. But for attendees here at the annual Matchmakers Conference, helping people find love is a modern profession, as well as a passion.
It's totally the best job I've ever had in my life. I love it.
All we do is meet with women, meet with incredible men, and set them up. It's great.
You're using your sense and your curiosity about people, their energy levels, their relationship goals, what hasn't worked in the past, what could potentially work now, and just literally setting them up and talking about love and feedback all day long, and that's my job.
To understand why these matchmakers are all gathered under one roof and what that means for those seeking love, see the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Rebecca. In another story of trying to get different types of people under one roof, one Jewish man decided to raise 5 impoverished non-Jewish boys and get them educated and through college. Now that he's got an empty nest, he's sharing his story in a new book and with our Christian Needon.
Baseball has a tradition of bringing families together, and for one New York Jewish man, the national pastime actually helped him add a few members to his household. Michael Rosen's family took in 5 non-Jewish boys from Manhattan's Lower East Side, then spent the next decade helping them get an education and make it into college. Rosen's memoir of this experience, titled What Else But Home, begins in 1998 with a trip to the park with his young son Ripton, where a baseball game was taking place on the blacktop.
He was the only white boy, and we were the only parents. There were other adults there, but they were Polish-speaking homeless guys, passing bottles in brown paper bags. After the game, Ripton invited 10 or 12 kids home. He invited everybody home, but 10 or 12 kids came, and they were black, Dominican, Puerto Rican. Those kids kept coming throughout the course of the summer, and eventually 5 boys from that game moved into our home, this house, and also became our sons. And that's the story of my book, from the day that we met the boys on a baseball field to the day that the last of them went off to college.
For more on Rosen's story, including what it was like to bring up an interfaith family, please tune in to the broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Raising 5 hungry boys certainly calls for some extreme lunch-making skills. Thankfully, there's a new kosher sandwich that's been declared the best available, and Margie Rauhat stopped by to see how it's made.
The winning sandwich at Kosher Fest was made by a father and son team, the owners of the U Cafe on Manhattan's Upper East Side. We stopped by to find out what makes the sandwich so special. While the other 2 competing sandwiches were thick with meat, U Cafe served an egg salad sandwich on a brioche with salmon and caviar and lots of special touches that made it truly exceptional, winning the cafe a nice trophy. How did you feel when you won?
I was in heaven. I mean, there is nothing better than that to win.
To find out more about this new family-run restaurant and see the sandwich come together, see the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Margie. That's all for this week. For more news and analysis from the Jewish Channel during the week, please check out our blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. For the full broadcast version of the Week in Review, including additional stories, interviews, and features, please stop by the Jewish Channel on cable. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.